All right, so my name is Thomas Pesquet and I'm from the European Space Agency.
Great. And where are you here today at the conference?
So I'm here today because last year, from November 2016 until June this year, I had the privilege of flying to space and serving on board the International Space Station. Which in itself doesn't have much to do with the environment because we're mostly doing science like medicine, technology, material science, physiology. So the connections to the environment are pretty remote. But what it does, though, it is providing us, the astronauts, with a vantage point that's unbelievable. And when you look down at the Earth, most of my colleagues, if not all of them, and me in particular, were shocked by the fragility of the planet Earth. And after that experience, I tried to spot on the planet the negative impacts of people's activities, of man's activities. And unfortunately, I managed to do so quite a high number of times. And coming back on Earth, I decided to kind of take up that fight and try to advocate for a better protection of our environment because those phenomena like climate change that happen at such a huge scale that it's really difficult to comprehend what's going on for us because we're not equipped to reason to encompass phenomena at a really high scale. But going to space 450 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, you can really see them, you can experience them, you can see them happening with your own eyes, and that makes a huge difference. So I'm trying to use that experience and do my part.
Can you talk about some actions that you and or the European Space Agency have done to do your part?
Yeah, absolutely. So the European Space Agency actually has a key role to play in protecting the environment because, like I said, those phenomena, they happen at a global scale, and the only way to really measure them is from space. Satellite for imagery, remote sensing, scientific satellites, they're responsible for observing more than half of the climate variables, which are sea temperature, average sea level, ice sheet thickness and area, air temperature, ozone concentration in the atmosphere, greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, things like this. They're all measured from space. So we have a number of missions, satellite missions happening as we speak that are providing all the data that are used daily by all the scientists across the world in their fight against climate change. So that's one. And for me as an individual, like I said, on the space station, I did roughly 200 experiments, very few of which on climate itself. But since I came back, I really tried to use that experience to talk to the younger generation, to address decision makers, and to reach out as much as possible and say, hey, take it from me, I've been there, I've seen it, don't believe what you're told sometimes. I can tell you I was there. Our planet is fragile and we have to act now.
And how does your position as an astronaut help you communicate with these communities better?
So it's actually it's a really good question. I was lucky enough to be able to share my mission on social media, so people started following me at the beginning, I think only because space in itself is fascinating and they were seeing nice pictures that I managed to take. And as the mission went on, I was talking more and more about the planet and the environment, and the focus shifted from space itself to the view of Earth from space, and I think people have kind of followed me on that journey. And now daily, I can still reach out to a huge number of people on social media. I mean, we all do. Astronauts in modern times, we have some followership on social media, and that's one thing. And the other thing is, I get sometimes to meet, decision makers, particularly in France, obviously, because I'm from France, but not only. So I try to get that message across and influence them.
Great. And in what ways can you work with the Paris Agreement and these negotiations to also create influence?
So it's actually funny, as a matter of fact, because I took with me to the space station a copy of the Paris Agreement that was handed to me by President Hollande back in the days, as a symbol that the role that space has to play in protecting the environment. And funny enough, it's actually not funny, but President Trump decided to kind of quit the Paris Agreement, and I tweeted that picture and I said, hey, look, from space, you cannot really make that kind of decision. If all the presidents and heads of state could go to space, then we would have much fewer problems on the Earth. So that was my first link with the COP21, and since then. COP22 I couldn't go to because I was in space, but now today at COP23 I'm trying to bring back that message, meet the people, team up with the different stakeholders. ESA has its role to play, but obviously lots of other organizations, the private sector, and everybody is here today, so sharing that message as much as possible to all these people is for me key today.
Great. Yeah, that